head wondering how we really built the pyramids? Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and this is Just Energy. Today we're going to be speaking with Andy Jardine about his new book, Annunaki Genesis, where he will shed light on some of the information that's been hidden from us behind a veil of secrecy. If you're a fan of the MMA, you might already know Andy. He started his martial arts career at the age of 6 and has worked closely in that field for many years. Interestingly, he's also appeared in a number of featured films including Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, The Mummy 1 and 2, Robin Hood, and Clash of the Titans. So please welcome Andy Jardine. Hey, let me just check my little picture thing. All right. Andy, it is so nice to finally get you on the show to talk about your book, Annunaki Genesis.
Yeah, thanks, Rita, for having me. And, it's really good to be here. So, again, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on. So, thanks very much.
Well, I think we're going to have a really good time kind of talking about ancient mysteries and all that good stuff. One of my personal favorite topics to talk about.
It's one of mine as well. Yeah, it's been close to my heart for a very long time.
But Andy, you have to tell me your story. I mean, you have this book about, ancient mysteries and obviously the Anunnaki, but you were like involved with the MMA, which, okay, I have to tell you, I don't really know really much about. And You've been like in a bunch, I only put like a few movies down that, I figured the mass population of people would recognize, Clash of the Titans, Robin Hood, The Mummy. But you have had this, I'm going to say, career.
Yeah, I sort of accidentally fell into the movie. I was just in the right place at the right time, and I got on with the special action team, like working alongside the stunt team on Saving Private Ryan. I had lunch with Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, because I'm half German, so I was teaching people how to speak German, which is how I got onto the film. And then they just had me in charge of like a little unit of men and trained them, how to use the weapons and stuff. And yeah, it just went on from there. Then I got a feature in Band of Brothers after that.
So are you ex-military?
Yeah.
Also?
Yeah.
All right, start at the beginning. So, okay, because like you have this whole like kung fu, kickboxing, MMA thing going on, and then like you're in all these films. Kind of start at the beginning and work people through a little bit.
It's a mixture. My dad is half English, half Egyptian, and my mum is German, and they met in London. So I'm half German. So I did my national service in Germany. So that was with the Bundeswehr. And obviously, like, I've kept up my German. I went to a German school in England where I was bullied for being the English kid in the German and then after. Yeah, it's true. And after persuading my dad, I want to go to an English school. Then at the English school, I was bullied again. I was the German kid in the English school. So, and that's what started me doing martial arts. I became friends with a small group of Filipino lads that also used to get bullied. Yeah, they were great. They were absolutely fan. Ramil, Rossano, amazing athletes. And they just asked me to come along to judo. So I started with judo, and then I carried on kickboxing, and that just got me into martial arts until it got to the stage where I brought MMA over to England and started the first cage events here. And then I promoted the first UK fighters and got them into UFC, got them contract UFC. So that's been my sort of job for the last 15, 20 years, really. But I don't do it anymore now.
Okay, but I'm going to use your word, but just for like a regular bloke that lives in the UK, that's pretty impressive getting the MMA started in, England and doing all of that, getting it all promoted and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had my own cage built. I designed it myself, took it to an engineer. He built it for me. We put it up in an arena, and we started putting on cage fighting events. Yeah, I was the only one doing it. And then when UFC wanted to come over here for their first show, they hired me and my team to work for them. And we worked for UFC. They would have been lost without us because they were sending fighters and staff to every single airport in England We literally drove all over the country to pick them up and get them to the hotel. It was a logistical nightmare.
Well, at least your country is small.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but the London Underground, some of them got lost on that. Never used it before. You can end up, over the other side of London. Yeah.
So what got you interested in ancient mysteries? I mean, I know that in your bio thing, you worked on Clash of the Titans, which is kind of like a mythological story. And The Mummy, again, a mythological-ish kind of story.
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad's half Egyptian, so his father was a doctor. My uncle, my dad's brother, he passed away last year, but he was a Egyptologist. And a professor. He went to Oxford University. So did my dad when they came over from Egypt. And my dad's father was actually a doctor, and he was one of the doctors that treated, the fifth Earl of Carnarvon when they were digging up the tomb of Tutankhamun. So,
Wow.
yeah. So it's in the family. My dad actually had a statue head from the tomb that he donated to the British Museum, because he thought he was giving him bad luck. It would have been worth a fortune, really, but because that was given to him as a gift. And there was loads of other things, but they've just gone missing. One of our friends in Germany, they've got a door from an inn that Mary Magdalene stayed in. It's the door from the inn. I'll have to try and get that one day. That's an amazing piece of history as well. So because of that, obviously I'm interested in it, and because I've been there as a child to see the pyramids, I've just tried to work out what they are. For a long time, I knew they weren't tombs. It couldn't have been built the way they said they were built, with pulleys and ropes and stuff like that, and dragging them along the sand. It just didn't make any sense. It's only when I read Chris Dunn's book, I thought, this is one guy that's actually got a valid theory here, and you can see all the engineering marks on all the blocks. So I went back to Egypt after I read that book, and I looked around the museum, took some sneaky photographs, because you're not allowed to, with my little spy camera, my little James Bond spy camera. Yeah, they go mad if they catch you taking photographs. I went inside the pyramids. You pay the guides to go inside again, have a look around, and you can. He's right. There's machine marks everywhere. You can see it all over the place when you look for it. So whoever built it was using machinery, and that just puts all the, the mainstream theories sort of on their backside, doesn't it?
Well, let me ask you, and I don't mean to interrupt. So It was your grandfather that was the Egyptologist?
No, my grandfather was a doctor, and obviously he was one of the only doctors in Heliopolis area, and a very good doctor he was as well. So he was the one that sort of, the first people they go to, like Howard Carter, and it's pretty amazing, really. I didn't know that, until I was in my teens, really. Just never said anything about it. And when I found all that out, and then I found out my uncle was an Egyptologist as well. And when I finally met my uncle, he was in his sort of late 60s, 70s by then. So every time he'd visit, I'd speak to him about it. And he's very open-minded.
So what did he think? Did he think that it went with the timeline that we're given, that, a bunch of guys, pulling chain gangs of rocks across the sand? Was that his belief?
No, I mean, he like I said, he was open-minded. He obviously, being Egyptian, he wanted it to be like Egyptians that built it. They all do, but it's just not. It's just far older than any of the Egyptian dynasties. You can see the other pyramids that they've copied, and they're just falling apart, and they're made with little bricks. It's built by someone that knew exactly what they were doing. And if it was so recent, there'd be plans all over the place for it, that people would have written about it all over the place. Like, look what I built, this massive pyramid, here's the blueprints, where is it all? It's built by someone that knew exactly what they were doing. They've done it a million times before, and it was really easy for them to do. That's who it was built by. And I don't know if you saw the program when they had the Gatton Brink robot that went up the shaft, and and they drilled through the door. I think it was the second program. The first one, they found the shaft, and they found the two metal clasps sticking out.
Right.
And the second program, actually, second program, they drilled through, and then they looked through with a camera. But on the floor was some markings, and they're not Egyptian. Chris Dunn was saying in his book that he thinks they're electrical markings. Yeah, it could well possibly be because of the two clasps, but whatever they are, they're not Egyptian. So, but they were put there by whoever built it. So it definitely wasn't the Egyptians. That's 100% sure. And that's basically the evidence there, right in front of you. You know, that it wasn't built by them.
Well, you know, and the engineering that would be required. I mean, there's stacking the bricks, which is enough. I mean, that's mind-boggling enough. But then to actually put those tunnels into the construction while you're putting it together, and then you add, you know, that there was that metal plate with the clasps, and then I think there was like a gap, you know, like they went through it and there was kind of a gap of space, and then the wall picked up again. It's like, how would you put that puzzle together?
It's a machine. It's built with the precision of a machine, and I think personally it is built by the Anunnaki, because the first thing you'd need if you went to colonize another planet and you wanted to do mining is you need a power plant. That's one of the first things you'd have to build. You'd need power, and that's what they did. I mean, all the structures all over the world, these huge blocks like in Baalbek, these massive 1,200 ton. We can't even move them today. We can pick it up and put it down. We can't move it. They're quarried from 5 miles away. They didn't drag it across the stand with pulleys, you know, and they're raised up on smaller bricks. The huge platform, and all the other ones in South America, Sacsayhuaman and Tiwanaku, all these places. Pumapunku is very interesting as well, but they're huge, and no one knows who built it. It's built by someone that was here a long time ago, and they knew how to fabricate things out of megalithic blocks because they've done it for millions of years somewhere else, you know. It's just, you know, it's all over the world. We can see the legacy of a lost civilization that definitely wasn't us.
Well, and you know, one of the things that I speak on is when you start looking at how they're styled or designed. You know, for example, in Cusco, you know, they have the blocks that have 500 sides to them, but then they have 2 little protrusions sticking out. But you see the same thing in Egypt on one of the pyramids, you know, which to me says I have the same engineer or the same architect building both sites.
Exactly. It is the same. It is the same engineer and the same architect, and it is the same people doing the same thing. Yeah, and the Anunnaki explain it all, and with the recent genetic discoveries as well, it just confirms that the writings are true. Like when they went to test the mitochondria.
Well, let's back up a second. You know, why don't you talk a second about, you know, who the Anunnaki are and kind of bring us up to speed, and then we can kind of go into the genetics and their legacy.
Okay, well, the Anunnaki was basically made famous by an author called Zecharia Sitchin, and he was a fantastic linguist. He translated the Sumerian clay tablets, and these tablets were discovered in 1841 by a French and an English explorer around about the same time they discovered him. Paul-Émile Botta was the French one, and Austin Henry Layard was the English one. Leonard Woolley was another one. He discovered some things in Ur, which is a different place in Iraq. So all the Bible stories come from this source. The Eden, like the Garden of Eden, that comes from Sumerian Eden, which means righteous place. And that's in the Euphrates Tigris area in Iraq. This is where the Sumerians were. And all these were around about the mid 18th century, 1849, round about that time, and obviously all these clay tablets have just laid hidden underground for thousands and thousands of years, so they're unchanged. No one came along and could rewrite it. No one scribbled it out and gone, I think I'll change that to "thou shall not," or "thou
Right.
shalt." Yeah, or just play with it like they do with scripture. So what they well, there's so many different versions, isn't there? There's two Qurans. Which one do you believe? The Mecca one or the Medina one. There's three Bibles. Which one? The Torah, the New Testament. It's you can change it. People change it. It's just different. But with these clay tablets, they've stayed the same. So when you translate them, they give you the actual full details of what the biblical writers have left out. Because obviously they were just going by oral legends, so they just wrote down what they heard. But these, especially these tablets, and there's over 1 million of them, they go into extreme detail about a race of giant beings, humans, that came from another planet, and they came to our Earth to mine gold. And while they were here, because they were so large and cumbersome, they weren't designed to be on this planet, and they definitely weren't designed to go down mines and stuff like that. So one of them, that was a scientist called Enki, decided to create a slave race, and it says in the tablets that they made many mistakes trying to create this slave race, and eventually they got it right, and that's us humans. And then we started to multiply, and they had us working for them, and they were in charge of us, like in the dwellings, and the others went to the mines to do the mining. And yeah, it just carries on from there. That's the beginning of the human race.
The beginning of the human race. So, any thought to how far back, in the beginning? I mean, in the Bible, obviously, there's the creation story, and that's when Adam is created. So, when do you speculate that Adam was created?
Well, the word Adam comes from the Sumerian word Adamu, and that means first man. That's all it means. So the Adam is just the first man. And I think I've read somewhere that Eve is not even a woman. It just means it's a Sumerian word for life. So it's Adam and life. And yeah, the bit, like I said, the biblical writers, they made a lot of mistakes. Like, for example, the word God is not. It doesn't mean omnipotent being like everyone thinks it means. It can be traced back to the Hebrew word Elohim, which is plural.
All right, we just totally lost Sam. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you're back.
Where was I?
You were at the Elohim.
Okay, the Elohim. That's the Hebrew word for the gods. Then we go back to the Assyrian Babylonian word Eluti, which means lofty ones, and that goes back to the Sumerian word Dingir, which means righteous ones of the sky chamber.
But, one of the things that you hear people talking about, the Elohim is a plural, but in the Bible, there's only one God. So how do you make that work?
Well, El and Eloha is the singular version of Elohim, but they don't use that. They just use Elohim, and they've just decided to make it one God. That's what they decided by using that one word, so they don't lose anything through the translation. So people have just thought Elohim means one God, but it doesn't. It means the gods. Yeah.
So do you think that the story that we have in the Bible is actually telling about multiple gods? I mean, this is how I explain it. That the writers of the Bible had a big bucket of whiteout, and they whited out half the story because you can't have one God when you have multiple gods, and how do you deal with that unless you just get rid of everything except that one God?
They they just decided it was one God. They didn't make any sense out of the gods. Didn't make any sense of that. So they just decided it was one God. But the Dead Sea Scrolls actually confirm the Sumerian accounts, because it mentions, there's the Book of Giants, it's called, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it mentions Gilgamesh. It mentions the giants, and it sort of mentions the Anunnaki as well in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Not by name, but by identifying them as giants, you know. But the Bible is straight from the seven tablets of creation, the Enuma Elish. It comes straight from there, but it's just a much more edited version. If you want the full details, you got to go back further in time to the source, which is the Enuma Elish, the clay tablets. Mm-hmm. That's your source material for all the religious scripture in the world.
So do you think that the Enuma Elish is actually, I mean, because that's our first written document, you know, but do you think that that's actually the original story? You know, because there's a story and then it gets told over time and it moves from one place to another. Do you think that that's the original story, or close to the original story, or do you think that there might be an oral tradition that goes back even further than that we just don't even know about?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility that other things could have happened on this planet a long time before that. There's no reason to not believe that some other extraterrestrial races have visited here way before the Anunnaki did. You know, the planet's 4.2 billion years old. There's other planets out there far older. You know, the rise of technology on these other planets could be far superior to us, you know, billions of years in front of us. So yeah, you know, that explains a lot of anomalies on the planet. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you think, or do you have any thoughts about, you know, you were talking about the megalithic buildings, you know, Sacsayhuaman, the pyramids of Egypt, you know, and their connection to the Anunnaki. Okay, and then we were talking about the creation of man. Do you think that these structures predate humanity, or humanity was here while they were building these kind of things?
I think all the dates that are given are really conservative. You know, they don't like to go past 10,000 years. They really feel uncomfortable with that. But you know,
well, they don't even like 10,000 years.
They hate it. No, you know, go back to it's the newest thing. They can, but you're talking about a civilization that came here for a race of beings that came here 450,000 years ago, and they created humans 250,000 years ago. So what did we do for 240,000 years? Nothing. No, we built stuff. So, and we built the stuff we're looking at with the help of the Anunnaki. We're talking, these structures are 250,000 years old, 200,000 years old. You know, look how worn out they are. You know, you get that worn out in 2,000 years. Not these granite and diorite blocks that they use. You know, it would not wear out that quickly in 2,000 years. You know, we're talking antiquity here, like a long way back, which is why there's no record of it.
Well, and people have said that about like Stonehenge or Tiwanaku. You know, it has those upright columns there that are just really weathered. I mean, when you think about Stonehenge, you know, they're irregular. And so why would anybody build something, you know, if you're going to drag a stone that big across, you know, however many millions of miles, you'd at least they could make, you know, like smooth sides on it. Sort of.
Sure. It's extremely weathered. Yeah, it's and it looks like it's been there for a lot longer than people think. But like I said, everyone doesn't want to be criticised by giving some date that they think is ridiculous and fit the mainstream. But you know, sod the mainstream. You know, we got to think outside the box here. You know, if we want the answers.
But, you know, my observation has been, if you look outside of Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic religions, you know, so ones that have a singular God, you know, their histories go back further in time, and they do talk about these sky people that interacted with humanity. And it's just really in the Western world, in the Abrahamic world, that we've been brainwashed.
Well, that's exactly what religion does, doesn't it? It does brainwash you into one way of thinking so that you don't question anything else. You know, I think, there's a lot more to the universe than some omnipotent being up there. I think the universe is an organism itself. It's a consciousness. You don't need to be religious to be a good person. You can be spiritual, and there's something much better out there than what people think is a god. It's a collective consciousness. It's all our minds that interact with each other on a subconscious level. That thought is much more appealing for me than believing in like an omnipotent being that, if you don't do as he says, will kill you. And he has wiped out a man before quite a few times, but really what they were talking about there was the Anunnaki that wiped out humans. That's the story straight out of the Bible, when God wiped out, caused the floods and stuff like that. Again, that's out the Bible. And Noah is Ziazudra. That's the Sumerian name for Noah. So again, that story's from Zuma, much older. And they decided to wipe out human beings because they were interbreeding with the Anunnaki, and they didn't like it. And the offspring from the Anunnaki and the human slaves, they were called Nephilim. So Enki's brother Enlil decided, right, that's it, not having any more of this interbreeding. We need to wipe everyone out. And then obviously, and obviously the Anunnaki that had relations with the female slave women and had families with them, they protected them. They didn't want them to die, so they sheltered them. So, and really,
that's Andy Jardine. His book is Annunaki Genesis. And thank you for watching this portion of our interview with Andy. If you're enjoying today's programming, please click on the button below and subscribe to our channel. If you want to hear this interview in its entirety, become a Just Energy Radio insider at justenergyradio.com and access full shows commercial free and gain access to our over 9 years of show archives. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy. Be blessed.